All right, that's enough. I don't want to get a copyright strike. I've come to a galaxy far, far away in Leicestershire to take a look at a roundabout that looks remarkably similar to a space station that you might have spotted in a series of films called Star Wars. Oh yeah, of course, you need to see it from above. One moment. That's no moon. The roundabout, known as the Hugglescote Death Star, can be found in Hugglescote, which is part of Coalville. As the name suggests, Coalville was a mining town which, until the 1830s, was nothing more than a single road. Once the mines moved in and the Industrial Revolution began, the town expanded and today has a population of around 35,000. In 2013, a redevelopment plan was put forward for an area of land to the southeast of Coalville and Hugglescote. The end result would see 3,500 houses built over the next 10 years. They're well underway with constructing these new homes, and part of the development involved installing a roundabout on Grange Road which would allow access to the newly built housing estates. The roundabout was one of the first things to be installed, with construction starting in 2019, and whilst it could have just been any other roundabout, instead it was landscaped to look like the Death Star when viewed from above. By now you must be wondering why, or what's the point of a Death Star roundabout on a new build estate in Leicestershire? The answer is kids' toys, although these days perhaps not kids' toys and more serious collectibles, but we'll come back to that. In 1919, Advert would start a company that dealt with plastics or celluloid before quickly moving into the manufacture of toys in a factory situated in the centre of Coalville. Over several decades, the company would grow into a massive success, having manufactured some of the most loved children's toys such as Action Man, Action Girl, Pippa Dolls, mainline model railways and Play-Doh. If you grew up in the 60s or 70s, then it's highly likely your plastic toys were made in Coalville. When the company first started, it was known as Castleloid, but in 1931 it was bought out by another organisation who created the brand name Palitoy, which going forward would be the name given to their newly acquired toy factory company in Coalville. As said, over several decades, the company would see great success, but its most proudest moment would come in 1978 with the release of Star Wars. Now, by this time, Palitoy had been bought out once again and was owned by the General Mills Toy Group, a part of the massive US-based General Mills, who are mostly involved with manufacturing food and not toys. The thing is, though, they also owned a US-based toy manufacturer who had just negotiated the rights to create Star Wars merchandise and toys. Those rights were transferred over to the UK, and it was of course Palitoy that would manufacture the Star Wars range of toys for the UK. It's interesting because at the time the company was seeing Star Wars as a bit of a risk. We have the benefit of hindsight, but back then you had no idea if Star Wars was going to be a success, meaning you could be tooling up a factory for failure. Fortunately, it all worked out, and at its peak, Palitoy and its poky little factory in Coalville were churning out millions of Star Wars figurines and other toys, making tens of millions of pounds in the process. One of Palitoy's most famous toys was the Death Star playset. It was simpler times back then when all you needed for entertainment was a bit of printed cardboard, yet somehow it captured the imagination of kids across the country and perhaps is Palitoy's most highly regarded toy.
The year is 1978, and Palitoy bring you Star Wars.
Today, those toys are somewhat collectible, and it's funny because at the time you had Palitoy making the same toys as a factory in the US for their respective markets, but today it's the Palitoy figurines that are the most sought after. It's said that the toys manufactured by Palitoy were just better, despite being the same. I had a look online, and in some cases you're looking at £3,000 for a single item. Anyway, that roundabout, it was built as a Death Star because the developers wanted to create something that would remind people of the hugely successful toy industry that was driven by the people of Coalville. I say remind because by 1994 it was all over for Palitoy. By this point it was owned by Hasbro, who shut down the factory, moving production overseas. A bit of a blow for Coalville, who had only just got over the economically damaging coal mine closures of the 1980s. Palitoy used to be located right here, but a lot of the original factory's now been demolished to make way for housing, and what's left has been repurposed by other businesses. However, where once stood a factory, we now find reminders of the town's past by way of some unique street names. You've got Pippa Place, named after the Palitoy Pippa Dolls.
Here's Pippa and friends, they're setting the trends.
And Action Man Road, named after another Palitoy favourite.
Action Man!
And his transport command.
The Hugglescote Death Star, perhaps not just a roundabout then, it's a respectful tribute to the people of Coalville and Palitoy who spent 74 years lighting up the faces and igniting the imagination of children all over. Thanks for watching.
Mainline Railways from Palitoy.
Action Man!
Transport command. Only from Palitoy.
Fun never ends with